Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the year is 2026. Happy New Year to you too. I know we haven't been consistent with recording pod, but we are here again. And as I mentioned, 2026 also marks 20 years since Arsenal, one of the most successful football clubs in England, moved from the Highbury Stadium to Emirates Stadium. We've definitely experienced some losses, some wins, some controversial incidents. Anyway, I have with me one of the most passionate fans in the world, one of the most passionate Arsenal fans in the world, Mikun of Arsenal. We will be talking about some of the glorious moments over the last 20 years. He'll be chiming in on how he has experienced Arsenal from 2006 to 2026. Mikun of Arsenal, welcome and thank you for pulling up.
Thanks, Khalil, 411 HQ. Very nice and
Yeah,
amazing to be here with
yeah,
you.
wonderful, man. Yeah, 401 HQ, that's the headquarters. And one of the reasons why I thought about this, right? Miko and I, we've always had this conversation about some will say a controversial player in Emirates era, who I believe is one of the best players Arsenal has experienced, one of the best players who has worn our jersey in the
hmm
Emirates era. And we'll talk about it in detail, but just keep an eye on that, right? One of the
You guys
first
should keep an eye on it because, I remember we don't meet eye to eye on that conversation. So it's interesting we're having that. So yeah, look out for that player actually somewhere along the line. Yeah.
Well, one of the first things I want us to talk about, right? Who do you think are the top 10 Arsenal players of the Emirates era? Of course, there are some names that I personally feel they are undisputed, right? The likes
Mm-hmm.
of Robin Van Persie,
Ah,
Sanchez, Alexis.
the other guy. I say that it's a part of being a fan for me that involves
Yeah.
I tell people about Kali. Kali is like that guy that likes to bring logic to everything. And
hmm
I feel like sometimes a big part of being a fan is sentiment and bias. And to be honest, I'm not going to have a conversation that has Robin Van Persie involved.
Oh,
Sentiment
so
wise, I
you
don't see that
just
guy
can't
involved.
get over that betrayal.
To me, I don't. People say betrayal, right? I think the word of business, right, is at the end of the day, it's a business. But what you say or the statements you make afterwards, that's where I think I can judge you on, right? And sometimes it feels like to me
Oh,
is more taken to his Man United side. So why should I claim him? Why should I want to have anything to do? As a matter of fact,
first.
if the Arsenal media page is not going to acknowledge him, why would I be acknowledging him? But
You know
anyways, please
what?
go ahead.
First. Another name that comes to mind is Cesc Fabregas. What do you think about
Yeah,
him?
Fabregas. I would agree with that. I think he's one of those players in the Emirates area that we saw that was really down to the technicality of the game. His passes, he even at some point captured us, right? So I think as you get to see really more players, some of the players on that list, you would see that some of them had sort of leave and had like a very interesting trajectory afterwards. Because of the project. For example, Fabregas leaving to Chelsea is something for me that I feel very fine. I find very interesting,
Exactly.
but hey, it's one of
Exactly. He
the
played for another
tainted
team.
marks of that Emirates era, as well, the beginning parts of that point. Yeah.
Yeah, another dude that I feel like also took that Van Persie and Cesc Fabregas route in terms of playing for another PL team is Alexis
hmm
Sanchez. Do you rank
Sanchez.
him?
I ranked Sanchez because, again, like I said, and the same thing I said about Fabregas, I didn't say much. Like Sanchez almost had that post. Should I call it that? Oh, well, this is PG. Let me not go. It just felt like Sanchez. There was just a moment where it felt like, bro, he could almost regret it immediately after leaving us. Now, even when he speaks now, he still has sort of has that respect for us now. So and then again for the way I saw Sanchez and the kind of, I don't think we've had a player like Sanchez in Arsenal in a long while, right?
Definitely.
I've not seen anybody that is so brave, so direct.
Definitely. Yeah.
In this current team, someone that just says, "Give me the ball, I'm going to do something." I'm
Do
not sure I've seen
something.
anybody like that. And I'm not talking about someone that's going
Definitely.
to affect the game from the middle, someone that's in the final third. I'm not sure we've seen someone like. So for him, I have a soft spot for him also. So for him, he's definitely going to be in that list for me.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I definitely have a soft spot for Sanchez
I
because
do.
the passion he plays with, his style of play, Personally, at
Yeah.
some point, I felt he was one of the best players in the world, period. And
I
you
mean,
don't get to
yeah,
say that
you could
about a
say
lot of
that.
Arsenal players at the time. He
Yeah.
won a couple of championships with his country, Copa America. I think they won back to back. Like Sanchez at his peak, there are not many players that could chat to Sanchez at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
one
thing about
of the
Sanchez, it was okay, but it just felt like one of those players that you just felt could run into fire for you. That's the way he played it. The guy
exactly he could.
he didn't have mid measures. He was always all in. He didn't even have, I can't even say all out. You just check for with Sanchez, he was just going to do everything for you. That's the thing about him. I think he's a
Definitely,
coach's delight actually.
he could win a game for you on his own. That's how good
On
he
his
was.
own.
That's how
Yeah.
impactful he was. One player though who I felt also had that kind of tenacity as Sanchez is my Welsh king, the boy from Cardiff, Aaron Ramsey. What do you think about him, man? Do you think Aaron Ramsey deserves to be in top 10 players in the Emirates era?
I mean, so I've not had my time to like sit down with this, right? But I feel like personally, if I was going to call 10 players in the Emirates era, I probably would have called 10 people before I even remember Aaron Ramsey. Not because Aaron Ramsey is not a good player. I think he was a very wonderful player for us. He did what he could do, right? But if I'm going to describe him, I'm not sure I'm going to describe him in terms of the way I just described Sanchez. But not to forget also, he had his own moments in terms of, I think one of the moments I remember about Ramsey has to be the time when we're seeing the trenches of, World Cup, what's called, um, UEFA, UCL qualifications. And I think there was this particular moment around either the last game of season of
Definitely.
2022 where it basically dragged us into the
He dragged us
UCL.
many times. There was a
Yeah.
season where Ramsey was on fire. By March, we were still in the Premier League race until we fizzled out. He had wonderful goals. And one of the things about Emirates era that was clowned upon, or one of the things people clowned Arsenal on during the Emirates era, especially during the early years, was that we were going
Yep.
trophyless,
Yep.
season after season, trophyless upon trophyless seasons, until my Welsh king, he took the game by his throat
He
and he
said he's
won us a
watching.
couple of FA Cups. He's someone that my memory supporting us now, I can't separate those memories. Same way I can't separate most of the guys on this list that we're talking about, the likes of Lawrence Koscielny, man. Also,
I
he had
mean,
an interesting end to his Arsenal career. What do you
so
think about that?
that I think that's the one thing about that. If you look at it very well, like I said, the one thing about Emirates era at that point before, should I say the Arteta upwards movement, it
Yeah,
felt like at that point of everybody at some point had to leave. And you could also argue they were leaving for several reasons, one of which they wanted to either do better for themselves, or maybe they wanted more money, or this was just their time for their career. But just felt like that particular era was really clouded with very, very, very terrible exits. Imagine the captain of your club going to somewhere else and removing your jersey for another one. I can't even. It's so terrible that I don't even remember the name of the fan club. So for you to be able to do that kind of thing, so it's
yeah,
just so interesting when you see this kind of thing, and you're wondering, okay. So, but the same thing, but I feel like also if you're talking about one of the top 10 defenders, maybe in the Emirates era, I would definitely call Lauren Koscielny the way it is, right? But top 10 players, I actually think he has a spot there because he's one of the captains I can actually remember in the top 10 in the Emirates era. So I think, yeah,
yeah. Definitely, he had a lot of good performances. Me personally,
yeah,
I think he should be there. He was probably the best central defender we had for a long, long time.
yeah, it was.
But speaking of painful exits or controversial divorces, also another guy
Hmm.
that comes to mind is Mesut Ozil. I mean, everyone knows this guy was world class. He was probably the first world class player we had for a while. But he also
Yeah.
left in certain circumstances that were not nice. What do you think about him? Does he deserve a spot?
Mesut, I think Mesut was one of the players that at some point made people feel they could respect Arsenal, right? First of all, nobody saw the deal coming through. Right? It
Definitely.
was the, I mean, this is not to put out our age here, but it was one of those areas where the Fabrizos and co were not in the spot. So if you wanted to know what was happening, you had to turn into Sky Sports YouTube
Definitely.
and like watch the scoop live. It wasn't so nobody saw that coming, right? I mean, so it was one of those players that I felt that the move to the Emirates was very very. And to be honest, like really, um, you know, thinking about it now, I feel there's some level of pain because I felt like we genuinely had the chance to win the league when Mesut Ozil was there. But for some
Yep.
reason, we also know the whole form around Giroud that period and just, that whole thing
Yeah.
just, I
And then
mean,
the title
it's
went to
the,
Leicester City.
exactly. And it's one of the reasons why we're out here having such conversations about Ozil versus Bruno Fernandes, right? These are the kind of
Yeah.
things that causes those annoyance when I'm talking about football. But yeah, I think Ozil definitely
Is he
definitely
up there?
deserves
Top
a spot.
10? Top 10 Emirates
Top 10,
era player?
I mean, top 10, yes, I think I will put Mesut Ozil there. I think I will. But when you think about it also, right? I mean, all of them are also going to measure down to the same FA Cups and Community Shield. You think about it in terms of trophies. So you have to go down to performances, right? And if you think about performances in intermediate area, definitely Mesut Ozil, right? I mean, I'm not sure. I feel like it's one of the things for Arsenal players. I remember then, if football is marked with you arguing about players. You don't talk about your players, then you're going to call I get Mesut. I
Yes.
forget what name they call him that time. I can't remember what name we call him. And I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not sure the
Yeah.
league has not seen outside of the likes of De Bruyne. I cannot say the league has seen
We've
good
not
passes of
seen
the
that
ball
kind
like
of
Ozil.
player before.
Yes, sir.
He could assist from his sleep, the assist king. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely he had a good time at Arsenal. It was just I
yeah, I
think it
did.
was short lived and he left in unscrupulous circumstances. In terms
Crazy,
of
crazy
someone
time.
who also won 4 FA Cups with Arsenal during that period is Jack Wilshere. I mean, he had his peak, in my opinion. He had his peak period for about, 3,
Hmm.
4, 5 years. Me personally, I think he would have done more. Injury robbed him of his greatness. He kept getting injured. I'd probably not put him on top 10, though. I think because he didn't have the length. What do you think?
Um, Jack Wilshere, I think some players are like symbols. He may not exactly be top 10. It's probably one of those players where the A-end folks would look up to. So maybe in terms of the A-end, in terms of movement from A-end to the
To
Arsenal team,
to the
yeah,
senior
it's
team
it's that guy. But in terms of top 10 areas, because again, you have to think about
impact.
availability, right? I
Yeah,
mean, Wilshere had the thing where he could probably not play how many games a season. So there's that. So I think wonderful
yeah.
player, technical player, but again, the injuries and everything robbed us of what he could have actually been. So I'm not sure I put him in my top 10, to be honest.
And then they say availability is the best ability, right?
Yep.
Uh, uh, in terms of the newbies, there are two guys
Mm-hmm.
who have been around the Arteta era for a while, who have been there relatively from Arteta's first Premier League game. There are two people that
Mm-hmm.
come to mind that they may be shooting for that top 10 list.
Who's
I
the
know
second person? Because everybody knows the first person.
one of
Mm-hmm.
them is someone you really like, Bukayo Saka. Do
Def,
you think
def.
he's there yet,
I
or he
mean,
could be
so
there one
I
day?
think, I think that to be honest, right, the Emirates era, that conversation, right? If you have this conversation in May, it could be a different list. You get what I mean? It could be a
Yep.
different list, right? So this conversation
We
now, it feels,
we
but if you
already
have this
have like a
conversation,
couple of guys, right?
yeah,
Bukayo
so if you have this
Saka,
conversation, yeah,
Martin
yeah,
Odegaard, William
yeah,
Saliba,
Saliba and Gabriel, first of all, right?
Gabriel.
Those two. So right now, for the virtue again, I feel like Saka would take that spot of Jack Wilshere, right? Because then now this is the proper A-lender, availability, from the trenches of being eight. I mean, we had a conversation where we were talking about him being the franchise player. I mean, Saka is just that guy that people even love just for him being Saka, right? So
Yep.
he is one of the poster boys for me of the Emirates era. He's also one of those people that just sort of made us, in quotes, start believing in A and more, right? Seeing,
Yep.
I mean, because thinking about it, if you wanted to buy someone like Saka, let's forget about present form. If you want to buy someone like Saka off the market, as a 2 seasons ago, you know how much you'd have spent, right? So that kind of thing. So I think, yeah, Saka definitely has a spot in the top 10 for me.
Yeah.
How many have even mentioned like this now?
We've mentioned 10 already.
10.
The other guy
Okay.
that I wanted to mention was Martin Odegaard. Do you think he's already there yet?
Odegaard for me, right? Odegaard for me is that player that I sometimes feel like I am I have mixed feelings about him. But when you hear how other players that actually know him speak about him,
Yeah.
then I'm asking myself, bro, I'm watching from the screen. Who am I really? Because they literally made a documentary on him on Martin Odegaard,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, definitely the
The,
quality is there. He was a
yeah,
whiz kid,
so
burst
yeah,
out of the scene at 14 or 15 years old. He was pursued by top
yeah,
European teams, right? The talent is there. I just think that sometimes is the application, right?
yeah.
And as you said, mixed feelings. Some days is the best player in the world. A lot of days, 70%. Some days is like 40%, right?
I mean, so if you think about it, right? When you think about it, if again, like I say, in May, conversations will be hard. Like that people will say, because
You know
if
what?
you're thinking about the MH
We need
area,
to have a part two of this.
we have to have a part of it because by May, by God, if everything goes the way we go, the person will be holding the picture of the Premier League trophy. He's the guy we just mentioned.
Yeah, definitely
Think about
our
it, right?
captain, our leader
Do
of the
you
young
understand?
core. He's someone I'm
Yeah,
definitely looking forward
yeah.
to putting on that list
So
if we
I
win.
think yeah, I think that Odegaard again is someone that will be on this. Also, we also have to like now we are in this era. We can see a lot of things that changed about Arsenal plays in the last 2 3 years. We saw a
Yep.
scenario where Odegaard was like a terrorist in the O. I mean, he literally had somewhere called the O zone for him. Like if that ball was in that zone, we knew what was going to happen.
Wow.
Then all of a sudden, injuries and everything happened. So I mean, so I think he has a big shout for it. Maybe not now, because of the caliber of
Yep.
players we mentioned ahead of him. But if that guy is the first person in the Emirates area to lift the Premier League trophy,
Definitely, definitely. And
it's going
speaking
to
of
be
Odegaard, right? Another thing I was
yeah,
thinking about in the Emirates era is who have been our best signings. And I always think about signing not just based off the impacts, but also the cost they were acquired, the cost at which they were acquired, right? So imagine you are getting a bargain out of a player and then they come and then they like, surprise you positively. Like, I think
yeah.
Odegaard was one of those players that we
We've
bought
got
at,
him at 40,
yeah,
40-ish, right?
relatively, it came initially on loan, relatively around that, relatively low, around that 40 million euros range.
That's a lot of money in the market at that time, right?
Yeah, not so much money. I think we were able to get a real bargain out of him. But one of our marquee signings, who I felt like they really hit the ground running from day one, and I think they're one of the best signings we've had in the Emirates era, is
Yeah,
Alexis Sanchez, obviously, and
yeah, I miss
the
Joseph.
guy that we spoke about earlier, Mesut Ozil. I
Yeah,
mean, they were Mesut Ozil in 2013, 42 million pounds. That's how much we used to acquire him. That was the British transfer record at the time. But I felt like,
yeah.
he gave us at least 2 to 3 seasons of world class impacts, world class production, and he has to be at top three, if not the best signing
I
we had
mean,
in the Emirates era, man.
beyond that signing, it felt like the signing of Mesut Ozil at that point almost was one of those felt points where, looking back now, we felt, oh, are we getting serious again? Because we had seen our club do
Yeah,
funny things. Suarez, 45 million plus 1 million pounds, like so plus £1. We had seen. I
that's
mean
definitely one
that.
of the funniest moments of
I mean, yeah.
of that era, man.
I
That
mean, Benzema. That was the era where, to be honest, as an Arsenal fan, you could not get excited about. You could be linked to the whole world, and at the end of the day, you get maybe
Yeah, it's one of the
get
things that
a
I
jacket.
actually want us to talk about in terms of
Yeah,
transfers that have failed. But before we go there, in terms of war signings, see Arsenal, we've bought it. I mean, as not just Arsenal, several football teams, we try to buy a lot of players. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. That's how things go, right? But there
hmm
was a guy that I was genuinely convinced about his talent. He came with that pedigree, but
Well, when is the person I'm thinking?
He was a World Cup winner. That was the
Oh,
tag. He was a guy that, whenever he starts, Arsenal never loses for like the first half of the season. But we all know how the story ended. The person I'm talking about is Shkodran
Squadron.
Mustafi.
Statue.
Do you think he should be on this list at all? In terms of like one of the worst signings we've had.
Worst signings in the Emirates area.
Yeah,
Is in the
worst.
Emirates
Yeah, in
area.
the Emirates era, man.
Khalid, you know that we have gone through a lot in terms of of players that have been signed. Right. So I'm just here thinking, bro, we signed Karlstrom. We signed Socrates. We signed Pablo
Kinte.
Mari. We signed Pablo Mari. We signed Raheem Sterling.
What's the name of that keeper that we signed again? Ronaldson.
Ronaldson.
Yeah. We've definitely taken a lot of L's. Do you remember this dude?
I mean,
Do you remember this dude? Park Chu-young.
Park Chu-young. I mean, I remember his name, but we signed the guy. I thought it was from our. I thought he came from our academy.
No, we signed him now from somewhere in Germany or something.
Oh wow! I thought he came in from our academy.
You know, but one of the guys, before we even go ahead, right? There's one guy that I feel like was very consistent for a long period of time, and we don't get to talk about him a lot. He probably was not one of the best defenders in the world, but you know that every match it gives you 70%.
Let me guess.
Who?
Nacho.
Yes, so Nacho Monreal. He's one of my favorite players, period, ever, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know that this guy is always reliable. He may not invert and give you, things that the modern
traditional left back.
But you know that he'll put his all. And he never falls below like 60%. You always have that B or B plus at least. And he's one of my favorite guys that I ever wore the jersey. And I feel like every team, every winning team or every good team, you need that kind of player. Where they're always reliable, they rarely get injured. They may not give you the magic all the time, but
I mean, by injuries, that's basically what the current Arsenal team is, to be honest. I think.
Pretty much,
because this season it's not being won. I mean, I'm not going to come and start shouting. Maybe Bar Raya start talking about, or maybe 2 or 3 players talking about, the team is full of workout players. It's just guys that want to fight, right? Just guys that want to put in the shifts. And, which is why, for example, people say a lot of things about the Arsenal team. But I think, really, like you said, every team needs those kind of players, right? You just need those kind of players to be able to, push the front every now and then. And that's what Nacho was for us. I'm not sure there's any Arsenal fan that doesn't like Nacho. I'm not sure.
If you were there and if you were watching the games, definitely you would love Nacho. I mean, just to round it all up, I know we've been talking for a while now. There are some players that I just feel like they gave a lot to the club that we did not mention. Players that the streets will never forget. One player that comes to mind is Santi Cazorla, man. That little magician.
How come Santi is not in that list? That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he could be. Do you think he deserves a shot in that list?
I think it does because, again, one of the ways, I mean, at the time we didn't have a lot of quality in our squad, right? But if you wanted to point to quality in the Arsenal squad, everybody could tell. I mean, he had his name. What's his name again? Was it the little magician?
Yeah. He had his own name going. I can't remember.
So it's one of those players. Yeah, one of those players that commanded respect for us as a club. Because again, nowadays people will crack jokes like, you don't understand how you can go back to school and you be arguing with Saliba, Gabriel. If you call like 6 players, that time we had just like 3 players we could call in arguments. Arguing with school.
Guys.
And Santi was one of them. Do you understand? Yeah. So I think
like that if you put the ball in his legs, he could always produce something for you. He was one of those guys that if he was on the pitch, magic could happen, right?
Yeah.
Just to round up that list, one of our African brothers who I felt like, especially on the earlier parts of the Emirates era, who was clutch, was Alex Song. Even though he did not really give us a lot in terms of the number of years he spent, but he gave us 2 quality seasons. At some point, that when Alex Song kicks that ball to Van Persie, that up through, and Van Persie, benefited a lot from that pass, and he volleyed it into the net. He's someone that I thought if he stayed back, he could have really been an Arsenal legend. But
man had to move with the peas, man. And he didn't hide it. I said, I don't have anything against him.
At the end of the day,
I don't. Right? Yeah. Which is interesting, actually.
A lot of the players we mentioned, especially players that came in pre-2012, 2013, A lot of them left because the team was just not competitive. They wanted to
Yeah,
earn more money. They wanted to win trophies. And we felt like a sellers club at the time. So that's why I
it
won't
was.
really blame a lot of those guys, the likes of Gel Clichy, Bakari Sanya, Kolo Toure, Robin Van Persie, Samir Nasri,
I mean, Nasri.
Emmanuel Adebayo, and a lot of them went to Man City, by the way, which is
Mm,
funny. So it's not like we did not
yeah.
have quality. We just did not have enough quality to have a title run at the time. Like whenever a player
Yeah.
gets good, we leave. Cesc Fabregas left, right? But it's been a fun rolling through the years, going back and looking at players that made our love for Arsenal stronger. There's one more player that
Mm-hmm.
I just thought about just before we go, Thomas Rosicky, man.
Okay.
He too. Another thing is he also was never available. He was always getting injured. The Czech Republican star, man. I really loved watching him play. His style of play, wonderful, energetic. He could hit shots, left foot, right foot, screamers, man. That guy was good, but he just did not.
Screamers. That's what I remember him for. Screamers. Yeah.
It just did not last long. But anyway, man, thanks, man. Thanks for putting up. It's been fun
Welcome, bro.
talking Arsenal with you. Definitely, we should definitely run this back again. But
Definitely.
guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe,
Like,
and hit the
subscribe.
notification bell, man. Yeah, 411, man. We out.
All right.